another Dwarven Tavern review. This time I am revisiting a book that I've never seen before. How is this possible, you say? Well, some time ago, actually it was a year ago or something like that, and it was longer than that. But some time ago, I requested of Mongoose Publishing a copy of their new Traveler books. And they sent me several. They sent me the Core Rules. They sent me Mercenary and a few others. And in case you're wondering, there's no books back here. I'm sure you weren't wondering that. But I'm redoing the library, and until such time as that gets done, I'm gonna be streaming on location from this chair. So anyway, in the news is that I'm giving, and I want you to know this. I want to say this first off, so you know. I know you know. I don't want to save it to the end, but I'm giving magic cards away to new subscribers. New subscribers, new followers. That's the YouTube channel and the Twitch stream, the Twitch channel. But you have to send me your email address or email me your mailing address. I can't email you magic cards. So yeah, and I'll be giving away a pack. I've got a ton, and so send me your subscriber name and or your screen name. Send me your screen name and your mailing address. Any mailing address. That may be your address. I'm not trying to exact information from you, but send me an address. I can send these cards to you, and I will mail you a thing of cards as a way of thanks. Plus the 50th and the 100th subscriber gets a free copy of Choose One from Looney Labs, which is a very cool game. If any game makers are out there and you want to help with promotions, please let me know, and I'll be glad to give your stuff away too. So this time I am revisiting the Traveler Core Rules book because when I reviewed the High Guard book, I was remiss in that review. I reviewed the book on its own merits, but there was a few references that it made that, like page 158, for starship combat. And I looked on page 158 on the core rule books that I had, and it was about psionics. And I'm like, what? This is obviously not the right book, but it's Traveler, but it's core rules, but it's 158, but it's not. So I contacted the fantastic young man at Mongoose Publishing, and I explained my conundrum, and he's like, "Oh, here, let me fix that for you." And he sent me a new book, which is this guy. So, out of fairness, I'm going to look at this book, not as a comparison to the old book, but in and of itself. I have not looked at it yet. So, I've played Traveler for, well over 30 years. Holy crap. Because, yeah, a long time ago. So, and Matthew is the author of this particular book. So he's the guy that gave me this. That's so cool. He's an awesome guy, and the stuff that he's done with this, Matt or Matthew, whichever you prefer, I don't care, whatever you prefer, I'm good with that. Good freaking job, man. I didn't even notice that before. That's really neat. Also, The interior illustrations are phenomenal in this book, in the other books, and it's the same folks that do it, that did the other books, that did this one, which is wise. This book goes for $49.99, and it's available from Mongoose Publishing and Studio 2 Publishing. So pay them a visit. And on the back cover, this is a free trader Beowulf calling anyone. Mayday, mayday, we're under attack. Main drive is gone. Turret number 1 not responding. Mayday, losing cabin pressure. Choking on popcorn husk. Fast calling anyone. Please help. This is a free trader Beowulf. Mayday. So, yeah. So you'd have to warp in. Okay, so let's take a look at the table of contents. I'm moving it over to the side because the freaking glare is unavoidable, unfortunately. And I'm avoiding it, trying to. We got the introduction, of course, the Traveler Creation, which is your character. You are a traveler. Skills and tasks, combat, encounters and dangers. Danger. I don't know. Encounters and dangers, equipment, vehicles, spacecraft operations, like if it needs to have its appendix removed, space combat, common spacecraft, psionics, trade, world and universe creation, and the Sindal subsector. So this page is 1 page long. The whole book, however, is 230-ish. It's more than that because the Sindal subsector starts on page 230. So let's take a look at the introduction. I apparently, I had French toast earlier. So, The Traveler is a science fiction role-playing game of the far future. A multitude of universes await players, and you will find the Traveler is capable of handling almost any kind of science fiction setting, you know. From highly intricate cyberpunk worlds to campaigns spanning entire galaxies where mighty empires clash, and suns explode, and daughters just get fat. I'm sorry for that. No, suns as in, the stellar phenomena. If you have a favorite science fiction film or TV show, Traveler will be able to replicate it for you, bringing your best loved futuristic moments to your tabletop. Now, I can say firsthand that is 100% true. Traveler. Well, when we started playing back in the early 80s, which is when we started playing it, believe it or not, there was life on Earth back then. We were actually on the Ark when we began playing Traveler because it seemed fitting. The third Imperium is like, it's like in Star Wars, you've got the Galactic Empire, and I was playing on a crew. I signed on with my gaming group. We're playing a crew of a rebellion against the Imperium, and it was Star Wars-esque, I would say. But it was it took place in the far future. However, much like in old episodes of Star Trek, the planets we visited in our ever never-ending quest to defeat the Imperium with one ship and like 6 guys. So yeah, there was that. However, with that notwithstanding, Uh, um, and the way our crew came to an end was just holy mackerel. That's a story in itself. But we visited planets that were from various tech levels. The coolest thing about Traveler, and I will go through here and see if I can find it. Yeah, right here on page 6 is a description of varying tech levels, and it was a new concept in science fiction role playing. I don't even know if there was any other science fiction role playing back then. I think there were. I think there were other things, but the tech levels were something unique to Traveler that I found, or at least best presented here in Traveler. The concept of tech level, or TL, runs through Traveler in most of its setting. Tech levels measure the scientific capacity of the world and the complexity and effectiveness of a piece of equipment. The tech level scale starts at 0. No tech. A rock. A stick. My buddy Gary. Gary's quite intelligent. In the third Imperium setting, most advanced scientists are probing the upper boundaries of TL15, which is, yeah. But most core rule worlds range between 10 and 13. Out of the fringes, in sectors like the Spinward Marches or the Trojan Reach, tech levels vary wildly. Isolated systems only once or twice a generation might have slipped back into the darkness, losing technology to war or disaster. And we did see quite a few of those. Post-apocalyptic worlds post-apocalyptic worlds that were apocalypted via natural disasters, like, the crust destabilizing, like in the movie 2012, or wars, of course, and disease and stuff like that. We would go down. We had a mission that we were going to be this peacekeeping force, because we wanted to get this planet on our side as a whole, and the rulers thereof, there were two major factions, East and West, and we had to go down and a peacekeeping force between this really, really tense situation that would have plunged the world into an apocalyptic darkness. It was like tech level 7 or 8, maybe 9. But they didn't have regular ships that could come and go as they pleased. And I'll get into the tech levels in a minute. And we had to go in and keep the peace between them. And that's when I discovered the power of the VRF gauze gun. But yeah, that was intense moments. So, TL0 is primitive, no tech. TL0 species only have discovered the simplest tools and principles and are on par with Earth's Stone Age. A rock, a stick. Tech level 1 is primitive, roughly on par with the Bronze or Iron Age, which is your knights and your days, archers, and your medieval. Tech level 2 is primitive, Renaissance technology, the telescope. The world is round. Yes, it is. It brings with a greater understanding of chemistry, physics, biology, astronomy. astronomy. As well as the scientific method. So yeah, Copernicus and Nicholas Copernicus, the dude that invented the thing. Leonardo da Vinci, even. Primitive is tech level 3, which advances of TL2 are now applied, bringing the germ of industrial revolution and steam power. Primitive firearms like flintlocks, wheel locks, matchlocks, guns that fire various munitions, combination locks. No. Comparable to the early 19th century. So you would get even all the way up to percussion caps and early breech locks, breech loaders, I think. Tech level 4 is industrial transition, and the cool thing is, everything in the book is delineated as such. So if you want to have a world in which it is tech level 4 or 3, tech level 3, and you just want to play your campaign in that world, everything that's tech level 3 you can do, and that's it. That's all you need. You just need this book and the equipment guide, and everything is laid out for you, and you have vehicles and weapons and tools. All that stuff has a tech level. So if you any one of these you want to do, tech level 4, the transition to industrial revolution is complete. Plastics, radio, and other such inventions. So, Tesla and that other guy that invented that thing. I don't know what's wrong with me. The radio guy. Roughly comparable to the late 19th century, early 20th century. So, there's that. Tech level 5, widespread electrification, telecommunications and internal combustion. So we've got, what is the guy? Gosh dang it. And I know that Tesla was the guy who didn't get credit for a lot of stuff, like, holy crap, Marconi, and it wasn't actually Marconi, I don't think. He got credit for it, for the radio, that is. Bose was also in there. Marconi invented the radio, but Bose made it sound great. But anyway, so you've got that. Atomics and primitive computer appear, roughly on par with the mid 1950s, the mid 20th century. Industrial develop efficient power, more advanced computing. Advances in materials, technology, and rocketry bring out the dawn of the space age, which is probably close to what we have now. Tech 7 is pre-stellar society, can reach orbit reliably, and has communication satellites. Computers have become common. At the time of writing, humanity is currently somewhere between tech level 7 and 8. So yeah, I was going to say that. I was, really. Tech level 8, pre-stellar. It is possible to reach other worlds in the same system, although terraforming or full colonization are not within the culture's capacity. Permanent space habitats become possible. Fusion And fusion power becomes commercially viable. Tech level 9, pre-stellar, defining. So we're quickly approaching right here, right now. We're quickly approaching tech level 8 on Earth. Defining element of TL9 is the development of gravity manipulation, which we are also working on that really, really vigorously right now, which makes space travel vastly safer and faster. Yeah, because once we unlock that, then, when that achievement's unlocked, then the sky is literally not even the limit anymore. This research leads to the development of the jump drive, which is something we're also working on, which occurs near the end of this tech level. Tech level 9, TL9 cultures can colonize other worlds, although traveling to a colony is often a one-way trip. TL10 is early stellar. With the advent of commonly available jump drives, nearby systems are opened up. Orbital habitats and factories become common. Interstellar travel and trade lead to an economic boom. But you don't hear it because it's in space. Colonies become much more viable. And that's not what I meant by boom. TL11, early stellar, the first true artificial intelligence become possible. Now, I don't know. There are bots right now that come really close to passing the Turing test. Yeah, we do have a little ways to go yet. But I think artificial intelligence, as computers are able to model synaptic networks. Well, that doesn't make them. Well, I don't know. There's a lot there. The school of thought is out on that one. Grav-supported structures reach to the heavens. Jump 2 travel becomes possible, allowing easier travel beyond the one jump stellar mains. Tech level 12, average stellar, weather control revolutionaries. No. Weather control revolutionizes terraforming and agriculture, man-portable plasma weapons. Yeah. And carrier-mounted fusion guns make the battlefield untenable for unarmored combatants. Jump 3 travel is developed. 13 is average stellar. Again, only more average than the one before. The battle dress appears on the battlefield in response to new weapons. Cloning of body parts becomes easy. Advances in hull design and thruster plates means that spacecraft can easily go underwater. Jump 4 travel. TL14 is fusion weapons become man-portable. Flying cities appear. Jump 5. And TL15, high stellar black globe generators suggests a new direction for defensive technologies, while the developments of synthetic anagathics mean that the human lifespan is now vastly increased. Jump 6 travel. So there you have it. Now, that is one of the biggest things that I love about Traveler is the delineation of the tech levels. Now, the mechanics for the mechanics of this game is one that forgoes levels. What I mean by that is that you don't earn experience points and go up levels. You simply spend time and get better. So let me explain a little bit about that. I'm kind of looking through it as I go. What it means. Every person, creature, and traveler has several characteristics to describe their base mental and physical potential. They have abilities or characteristics. Base characteristics for humans are shown opposite. So, what does that even mean? Your physical, it's on the opposite column. Physical characteristics: strength, dexterity, and endurance. The mental characteristics are intellect, education, and social standing. Note that they do not have wisdom, because I think that it kind of reflects that the wisdom of a character is part intellect and part education, and it's also largely because it's largely on the player as to what if they do something that their character does something that is wise or not. So that's something to think about, because we've often discussed the philosophy of and the challenges of playing a character that is more intelligent than you, which for some that can be quite easy. But for the most part, no. For the most part, characters, if you're okay, especially in like a superhero setting or in a setting like this, when you're playing like an engineer character who knows everything backwards and forwards about a ship systems, and then has a high intelligence, like 12 in this game, which is high in this game. The maximum score for a characteristic is 15 for an unaugmented human character. So think about that. Okay, so if you got an intelligence 15, that is maximum human potential, unaugmented. So, I know, I'm an intelligent guy. I've got 5 degrees, and I've got 2 bachelors, 2 masters, and a PhD. And I know I'm not as smart as I could be. I'm certainly not as smart as I'd like to be. And I have a frick ton load more to learn. So, playing an engineer that knows a ship backwards and forwards, I don't know a lot of modern automobiles backwards and forwards. I'm not a car guy. So, that's the thing. So how do you play this guy who automatically can spout a dissertation of Star Trek technobabble other than going to the web page and, just pulling up some nonsense and having to roll to see if it works, that's valid. You can do that. Makes for better role playing. But to be able to, to know what I need to do, my character might know, and that's where the roles take over, of course. Okay, so it's a challenge. Skills are the most important aspect of Traveler and are discussed in detail on page 56. Traveler's proficiency in any skill is denoted by their level in that skill. So, before embarking on your career, you receive a number of background skills equal to your education die modifier plus 3. So if your education is 15, you would get 6 background skills. So 0 to 6, depending on your education score. Chosen from a list below. This represents the knowledge you have picked up during adolescence, and it will allow you to function at a basic level in a technological society, which are admin, animals, art, aesthetics, carouse, drive, electronics, flyer, language, mechanic, medic, profession, science, seafarer, streetwise, survival, and vac suit. So, yes, vac suit is a skill. If you don't know how to put on a vac suit, guess who gets sucked out into the void? That guy. So that gives you a 0 and a 0 means you have a working knowledge of it, which means you get a basic roll. which, high marks for that. You don't have to have a 1. Then, and under some circumstances, let's take a look at page 56. 56. And take a look at these so-called skill checks. So you make a skill check, you roll 2 dice, and Traveler is a D6 system, all D6s, which is really cool. If the total is 8, you succeed. Okay. But you have to apply die modifiers to that, or dice modifiers to that. What are the die modifiers? Dice modifiers. So you add your characteristic die modifier first. When forcing open a sealed door on a derelict ship, you would use your strength dice modifier. If you've got a strength of 15 plus 3, blam. You need to roll an 8 or better. But if the door is exceedingly heavy, that could be a -1 or a -2 or a -5 because it's freaking, blast doors. So when trying to endure a long trek through the desert, you would use your endurance die modifier. Deciphering an alien puzzle box, intelligence, so forth. These are characteristics checks, which I like the fact that it's just so simple. It's just so that simple. When you're trying to impress a guard with his wealth or position, you use your social standing die modifier. And depending on the nature of the guard, plus or minus. So really straightforward. Skill checks. Shooting a gun is a gun combat skill with your dex modifier. So you do add your characteristic die modifiers to your skilled checks and so forth. So the task difficulty on page 58 is very, and this is the one thing I've always disliked about DC, because it starts out at 10. 10 is average. It's an average thing when you roll a D20. So it's an average thing. So, is it what is the skill check? Is it a DC of 15, 20, 35? It goes up. This, if it's simple, you get +2. If it's easy, it's a +4 on the difficulty. So 8 plus 4 would be, you need to, I'm sorry. The target number. I was going to say simple is a DC, or is a difficulty of 10, but it's not. Your target number is 2 if it's a simple task. 2+, meaning you can't fail it. If it's easy, your target number is 4. If it's routine, your target number is 6. Average is 8. Difficult is 10. Very difficult is 12. And formidable is 14. So, easy tasks are trivial for the trained professional and simple for an amateur. Formidable, on the other end of the spectrum, are exceptionally hard, such as performing surgery in 0G within a ship that is under attack. Hell. Hacking a military-grade computer network, disarming a terrorist bomb, or convincing a city of superstitious natives that you're a peaceful trader that does not want to rape their women. That you're a peaceful trader and not a demon from the outer darkness when you do not speak a word of their language. That's a formidable task, indeed. So, with that being said, it's really simply laid out, and then you just decide. Now, you also have opposed checks, which is pretty straightforward. Then the boon or bane. Well, what's it say about boon or bane? I'm not talking about Daniel or Batman. Daniel Boone. The task difficulty allows for a referee to pre-plan the skill and characteristic checks travelers will need to succeed. Can't talk today, which is unfortunate since I'm doing this. During the adventure, however, there will likely be situations that arise that will make things either easier or harder for the travelers. This is where boons and banes come in. So basically, a boon, good tools, competent aids, or other beneficial circumstances, you receive a boon. Here, let me help you with that blast door. Well, who's that? This means roll extra dice during the check and discards lowest. An extra dice. Boo. An extra die. If you're hindered, you roll an extra die and gosh dang it. An extra dice during the check and discard. Okay, I have heard that it's acceptable according to the Oxford English Dictionary, which you can take that with a grain of salt. Stuffy Oxford Dictionary now. They're also the Oxford English Dictionary people are also the ones that wanted to erase any hints or as many hints of Germanic from English language as they could. So they're the ones that created the rule you may not end a sentence with a preposition, which is very Germanic and was acceptable up to that time. And Winston Churchill said the rule that states that we may not end a sentence with a preposition is something up with which I will not put. So there you go. So anyway, they say that it's okay to use dice for singular, which I don't think that's okay. It's not cool at all, man. But you can if you want. I don't care. But I will cringe when you do. So yeah, I know, big deal, right? Anyway, this means he rolls an extra dice during a check and discards the highest. So it's kind of like the advantage-disadvantage thing in, Pathfinder? So yeah. And I think it's 5e, right? So you roll 3 dice, take the highest if you get a boon. So, and you roll 3 dice and take the lowest 2 if you get a bane. And then you'll be molded in it. Steeped in it. Molded by it. The traveler can only be under the influence of one boon or bane during any one check. So, there you go. Now, it has a list of things that you can do, which is incredibly cool with each of these skills, like life support, like engineer specialties. The engineering skill, because the skills are kind of broad. So with the skills being broad, they kind of give you an idea of what it means. For example, one skill that is widely misunderstood is carousing. Carousing is the art of socializing, having fun, but also ensuring other people have fun and infectious good humor. It also covers social awareness and subterfuge in such a situation. Drinking someone under the table is an opposed carouse check. Difficulty varies by liquor. Gathering rumors at a party. Average 8 or better. a carouse check, and it takes 1d hours to do so. So yeah, instant intrigue, just like that. And I know I sound like an infomercial for this game, but I love it. I love this game. Combat. Oh, I did not find the rules for improving skills. So let me see real quick, because I know there are rules that oh, there's no oh dear. There's no rules on improving skills. However, you can improve skills, which I like, because it's I guess it would have to be in this, but in this section. So I'm going to take a look. If a traveler has no level in a skill at all, skill level dash, then he's untrained and will suffer a die modifier -3 when trying to use that skill. When you have a 0, then you are competent. Unless you have Jack of all trades, and then you automatically get a freaking amazing thing, but you can't get Jack of all trades any other way than in training. So specialties, task checks, skill checks, task difficulties. Making checks. So I'm gonna have to look, do just a skosh of research here, because I don't want to take a whole lot of time. And see if I can find something on a wiki. RPG, my God. Yeah. Learning skills, character development. Okay, so from what I've understood, that let me see if it does mention it here anywhere. A traveler with a 1 is trained in the skill, and each level represents several years of experience using that skill. Grants a die modifier +1 per level to all skill checks using that skill. A traveler with a 2 or 3 in a skill is a skilled professional. With a 4 or 5 is probably well respected and well known in its field. So yeah, it's not just, level 4 skill. A traveler with a medic 1 may be a paramedic or nurse, while another traveler with a 2 is a doctor. If a traveler is medic 3, they would like to be a very well-regarded doctor with years of practice, and 4 or 5 would be at least world-renowned. So these levels are not to be taken lightly. Um, and character advancement. If let's see, during play, characters may wish to learn new skills placed into a situation either accidental or intentional where they would gain new knowledge, understanding, or physical prowess. At the referee's discretion, it is appropriate to the situation. Role play should be the player exceed their target role. They may be allowed the opportunity to advance their skill and gain a characteristic. The advancement roll is 2d6, degree of success, plus the education die modifier. Then roll of 12 automatically succeeds. You have training time. If you have 100 million credits to spend, which is possible, your training time is 0 weeks. So that's like a special like matrix plugin. And the higher the higher the skill, the harder it is to learn new skills, which I agree with. It's harder to get better at something you're already very good at, and so forth. So the skills category is to me it's right on. And I'm still trying to find out where that is in the book. Some people, disagree with it. But time is different to these guys because of anagathics and anti-aging and stuff like that. So you play it however you want it, but I like it this way because to me it's fair. And I know there's people who disagree with me, but so with combat, the combat system is straightforward. It's a die modifier. It's an 8 or better. It's always an 8 or better because that's a little bit better than average. On 2 dice, 6 is average. And then you subtract for you add for armor modifiers on one hand, and then you subtract for you get pluses on your roll for strength or dex, depending on if it's a melee or a missile ranged weapon. And then it's got the rules for movement. Free actions, extended actions are all pretty straightforward and fair. And let's see the damage. Now here's an interesting thing about damage. Each weapon in Traveler lists the damage it inflicts as a number of dice. A rifle has a damage score of 3 dice. Pretty straightforward. On a successful attack, the damage is rolled for with the effect of the attack roll added to the total. Damage is initially applied to a target's endurance, which, you pull back and you punch somebody in the jaw, they'll feel really tired. May want to take a nap if you hit them hard enough. I know this to be true. I have landed a few. If a target is reduced to 0, any excess damage is deducted from the target's strength or dex, the target's choice of which. If either strength or dex are reduced to 0, the traveler becomes unconscious, and further damage is reduced from the remaining physical characteristics. If all three characteristics, strength, dex, and endurance, are reduced to 0, the traveler has been killed. And then they've got a thing on healing damage on page 78. So when a melee attack is successful, the attacker adds their strength die modifier to the damage rolled. The bigger hits harder. I personally, one of my house rules is that a high dexterity also lets you aim better. So I allow for dexterity modifier. I allow for the dexterity modifier to be used in ranged weapons as well. Doggone, I got something in my eye. But that's just me, and I know a lot of other people agree with that as well. Then you have a list of weapon traits, which the weapon traits are fantastic, very well thought out, like stunning, scopes, armor piercing, auto X, fires multiple rounds. The auto fire, single, auto X, fire multiple rounds at every single pull of the trigger, filling the air with a hail of fire. A weapon with the auto trait can make attacks. Excuse me. A weapon with the auto trait can make attacks in 3 fire modes: single burst and full auto. Attacks are made single, bang, bang, bang. One attack. Burst adds the auto score to damage. So if it's auto 3, then you go prow with a burst, and it uses a number of rounds equal to the auto score, and that adds a number of rounds, a 3-round burst. The fully auto makes a number of attacks equal to the auto score. These attacks can be made against separate targets for as long as they are all within 6 meters of one another. Full auto uses a number of rounds equal to 3 times the auto score. So if it has auto 3, then you can fire 9 rounds in a burst. You can use it separate targets. So a weapon cannot use the auto trait in the same action as the scope trait. So very cool. So high marks for that. Then you've got, let's see what else we have. Encounters and dangers. You've got diseases, poisons, radiation, gravity. Yes, gravity is a danger. It is to me. I've lost some weight, so not as much as it used to, but there's that. Radiation effects, exposure. I was just reading about the Demon Corps when they were doing the first atomic bomb testing. How they were trying to get that critical mass, and twice the critical mass was reached, and didn't it explode? It didn't implode like an atomic bomb, but it flooded the room with gamma rays, and it did not create the Hulk. It created a dead scientist. Unfortunately, two scientists died from that series of experiments. Well, a lot of people died from that series of experiments ultimately, but so you've got suffocation, temperature, vacuum, weather. All those things are valid and can cover just about any situation. Look at Alien when they landed the first lander on the planet LG. What was it? 156 or something like that. I don't remember, but when they first landed and found and discovered the alien that they were sent there to discover without knowing, it was a very hostile environment, and the atmosphere was awful. So and the weather was bad as well. It's like, yeah, and it's another thing too is that, you consider that bad weather, might only, or you consider that a bad atmosphere, like, oh, it's not breathable, but it's always, of course, completely calm. No. The weather on like Saturn, Jupiter, gravity, pressure. I mean, I've heard that within, I think, 400 miles of the surface of Jupiter, I think it was 400 miles, that hydrogen, the pressure is so great that hydrogen and oxygen and various other gases are actually liquid. At extraordinarily high temperatures as well. So, because pressure does that. If you take the pressure away, water boils at room temperature. If you increase the pressure, then you've got gas, you've got liquid hydrogen at room temperature. So, it's crazy. We're on a very fine tightrope here in this here world. Then you've got natural healing and the like, which I approve of. You gain a number of characteristic points equal to 1 die plus your endurance modifier per day. So you get better pretty quickly, even though your wounds might, be severe. So if you had a die modifier of 3, then you could potentially get back 9 points a day. The flesh wound. The encounters are very well delineated. I see about animals, and it's got a number of animals, and that number is 8. But it's got scourges and skitterers and geast worms. Ugh. Oh, those are horrifying. It's like a Cthulhu in a turtle shell. This guy right here. The living net. Yep. Jungle howler. Reminded me of the movie Evolution with David Duchovny. And names are just not in here today. So then it's got animal reactions, fight or flight. It considers everything. Starport encounters, urban encounters. So, yeah. I love it. Love it. Highly approve. They thought of very much a lot in that very oddly constructed sentence. Then the the equipment section is pretty much like a catalog. Reminds me of oh my God, what the name of the Pip-Boy, the hell. Okay, I'm brain dead today. Then communications with the core collective, computers and software, medical supplies, sensors, all these things I see are very, very well visually represented, which is cool as hell because, as I've said many a times before, that that visuals are closer to immersion. So if you just write down a rescue bubble, you think of a bubble, but then you see a guy standing next to it here, and you're immersed. You're like, oh well, I can see what that means, and so, and then of course it has a list of the weapons, which is very cool. My favorite dude right here, the Gauss rifle or Gauss. which, if you were speaking more, I guess Gauss could be the proper pronunciation for it. I could look it up, but I'm not going to. I prefer calling it a Gauss weapon because it's basically a handheld railgun. And it fires a 4 millimeter stainless steel, or it says a high velocity projectile, but in other descriptions I've read it as a 4 millimeter hollow point lead jacketed steel cord needle, which, holy crap. And the VRF gauze gun is even better, because I think it fires 10 millimeter needles, which, an injection of that, thank you, no. Then it's got the heavy weapons, weapon options. Look at that. This illustrations. Is that not awesome? And this is not a review so much as how much Jeff Collins loves Traveler. But it's true. It's one of the best games out there now, and I think their treatment of it is it does it justice. Critical hit effects, even vehicle weapons and damage thereof, and then it's got how to build your vehicles, the grav carrier. Flying armored personal character. Yes, I want one. No, I can't have one. Then it has, in the section of spacecraft, it, of course, it has the encounters where you can roll for random encounters. All the varying remote operations like mining drones, probe drones, repair drones. Then it's got the system on space combat, which is pretty in depth. And pretty cool. I definitely give it high marks. I like the way they hit it. I like the treatment thereof. Only very rarely do ships completely explode. When the hull loses all its points, then it simply breaks apart. And when you think about it, unless you make a direct hit directly to even a fuel tank. We're not talking about tanks full of gasoline or some other propellant. We're talking about a fuel that like thorium. If you used thorium or some other kind of propellant or some other kind of reactive material, it's not going to go supercritical and you blow up like the freaking Death Star, unless the reactor can do that. They have reactor critical hits or power plant hits where the hull severity is increased by 1 die and the power is reduced to 0. That's a critical hit on a power plant. Thrust reduced to 0. A spacecraft suffers 6 dice of damage. When the remaining damage is removed, once a spacecraft has been reduced to 0 hull, it is wrecked and becomes totally inoperable and is just beyond any repair. Those on board will find them without power or life support, plain and simple. The weapons can explode. The computers can be destroyed. The jump drive is destroyed. Very, very rarely, it's like only if you hit that spinal cannon will it completely, just like blow up. So, and that might seem a bit disappointing, but because you want to be able to hit it and it just explode. So um, the missiles explode when they hit the ship. That's about all the explosion that you would have. So I think that's fair. Okay, so then in this section, we've got the deck plans, and this is the coolest thing ever. Again, that visual immersion. All of the ships, the laboratory ships, the mercenary cruisers, the patrol corvettes, all these things are a throwback to the original pamphlets of rules for Traveller back in the 70s. That was just so cool, but they didn't have these deck plans. Love the deck plans. So immediately it's like five axes for this, just for the deck plans. The psionics is I had a psionic character back in the day, and saved his bacon more than once. Actually made bacon with his mind. The rules, I will say straight off, are fair and very well done. It's not overpowered. You have the Scion career, which you can have a wild talent, or you can go with Adept or Psi Warrior. Then it has a section on trade. Now, I know that Tavernier Ian is a huge proponent of day trading in the in-game and out, and he made his fortune selling Ewok porn in a game. It was a game, and I think we were playing. Were we playing Traveller, or was it Star Wars? But it was a small race of creatures like Ewoks. I think it was a Star Wars campaign, and he made a fortune doing that. And you can ferry passengers, you can smuggle. Got all the rules, and then it's got this extensive list of trade goods, common electronics, all the way down to exotics, illegal weapons, everything. So it's got all the rules for world creation, which has always been extensive, including the population. And I'm not sure if I think there are a few online things. I don't know if they've been commissioned or licensed by Mongoose, so I'm not going to mention anything until I find out. But when I do, I'll put it on the YouTube channel and the Twitch highlights of this review, so you know. But 80% of the fun of this is pencil and paper, and I know that's really old school, but this is just the game. I mean, it's the coolest thing. Then with the subsectors, the sector codes, one of the things that's so cool. I mean, this is like sci-fi canon to me. Where is the? I was kind of hoping they'd had a kind of hoping. No, I guess they don't. Well, yeah, they probably do in the Sindal subsector here in the back. A representation of, there it is. This is the Sindal subsector, and this is your standard canon Traveller sector map, subsector map. And you can see over here it's got the Spinwood Marches, which is in another book that I'm going to review. So you've got all this stuff. You've got the coordinates. Then in the legend down here, these are gas. That has a gas giant. It has a dry planet here in Homestead. It is a green. It's a secure system, so it's green. This is an amber zone. An X-boat route is here. Imperial Border, this blue. Fuel dump is there. And then it's got all of the things telling you what the profile. Each profile has a code in hexadecimal, which is base 16, meaning any number over 9, any digit over 9 is represented by A, B, C, and D, E, F, G, so forth, all the way up to the number 16, which is what, J. A is 10, 11 is B, 12 C, 13 D, 14 E, F is 15, and G is 16. So, and each one of those have a meaning. So, it's a very invasive. No, it is a very inclusive. No, it's a very immersive game. That's the word. It's very immersive. To me, it's canon for sci-fi. I totally love it. It's 5-axis all the way through. It is my favorite game, so I am biased by the quality of the game. I like their treatment of it. I think they do it justice. And so that is Traveler, Core Rule Revisited for the first time, and Science Fiction Adventure in the Far Future, or any increment thereof. $49.99, excuse me, at your Amazon or whatever. And if you tell them that Dwarven Tavern sent you, they might let you buy a copy. Don't know. So I'm going to end it on that, and hopefully you will find as much pleasure in this game as I do, just because it's just a blast. So on behalf of the entire cast and crew of the Dwarven Tavern, I am your host, Dr. Jeff Goins, wishing you to want for nothing but adventure. And at first I feared it, then I charged. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.